All right, and welcome. This is my kitchen. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's not very extravagant. It's kind of small. There goes my little puppy. But today, I am doing a test run of a pour-over video. So, today, we're going to be doing specifically V60. So, I have my V60 pour-over station here, along with a pouring carafe. I have my grinder, hot water already pre-boiled, and today my coffee is going to be a new varietal. Actually, it's going to be a pink bourbon. So this is supposed to be a designed coffee to be more resistant while still tasting great. Of course, you have filters, V60 filters. This is the O3, I believe. It's the larger of the two. I think the O2 is a little bit smaller, but we're going to be using the O3 because that's the size V60 I have. As far as V60s themselves, I have the ceramic. There's also a plastic, and then there's glass and various others. Just different types of V60 makers. Honestly, I think ceramic is great because it holds the heat well, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. So a lot of times people don't mind leaving it in their kitchen. The plastic is not really that great because the heat travels through it really, really fast, as well as the glass. But the glass looks even a little bit better, in my opinion. It's the best looking of the three. The glass is pretty good though. But honestly, ceramic is the way to go for me. It's cheap. It's nice. Makes good coffee. All right. So, first things first, we are going to be using a 1 to 16.6 ratio for our coffee. I find that gives like a pretty good strength to it, while it's not being too much body, not being too much astringency. It's just really good. I tend to keep a light in my kitchen next to my coffee stuff because it really helps out, because I have poor lighting in my kitchen, to find all of the Quakers. So in this coffee specifically, I don't see anything too bad. Maybe this one. This is kind of pushing it. This one will be kind of fine, to be honest. But I like to use about a smaller cup ratio, so I know you can brew anything up until like about 500 grams. As far as like the coffee, so that's about 16 ounces or something like that, depending on whatever you're using. I tend to use about 300 to 18 grams. I just find that that's more than enough for drinking, for personal coffee. If I'm like haven't had any coffee today, or it's coffee I'm really, really enjoying, I might make a 350. So that's about 12 ounces or so. It's really good. I just find that this ratio works really, really well. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, your ratio, as long as it's something in between. I would say about 15 to 18 is a little bit pushing it, maybe 17 and a half. V60 works well like in that range. So you'll find that all the coffee in there tastes pretty good. It's just a matter of your preference from there. So I tend to have maybe like a tenth of a gram over or something like that, because I know my grinder, I'm using the Encore grinder. A lot of people are familiar with it. It tends to spit the grounds a little bit everywhere. So I maybe 1 or 2 beans extra on there. So that way I know that I'll be having at least 18 grams inside of the V60. So, my grind size, as far as my grinder specifically, I'm using about like a 12 or a 13. Frankly, it all doesn't matter, like the number specifically, because my grinder would be completely different from whoever else's grinder is using it. So it's a little bit finer, like a tiny, like maybe one notch or two finer than a Kalita, maybe about 3 or 4 notches finer than your drip or your AeroPress, depending on whatever grind size you're using for your AeroPress. Definitely 10, maybe a little bit less than 10, finer than a French press. All right, so start the grinder. Give it a couple taps so that way I make sure everything is coming out. All right, cool. So next is your filter. So with V60, the filter typically comes flat. You just fold the crease right here. I'm struggling obviously because doing it one-handed is a little bit more inconvenient, of course. But, yeah, like they always say, where there's a will, there is a way. We're all set. Cool. I tend to be kind of generous when wetting the filter. What's up? Sorry, that's my dog. I tend to be pretty generous when wetting the filter because when using just a more than necessary amount of water, it heats the entire vessel. And when you have your entire vessel heated, you don't have the opportunity for the first amount of water to lose a lot of its heat because the glass in the V60 itself is so cold that it will tend to draw out heat from the water itself, and which means that's less energy to extract from the initial beans. So, zero out my scale, drop in 18 grams. All right, cool. So you want to make sure that your grams are as level as you can get them in the beginning, because that essentially just helps out throughout the extraction process. So I zero out again. I start my timer, and I am off. So typically, I try to be as heavy-handed as possible in the first initial pouring, because as you can see now I'm stirring as well. What we want is the ability to saturate all of the grounds as fast as possible. So stirring is considered relatively controversial because everybody's used to the idea of just your bloom looking as pretty as possible, making sure that it's as even as possible. But what they don't understand is sometimes not all of the grounds are being extracted. It's not, the extraction process might start up until about 15-20 seconds from the first initial contact. So similar to like how you see there's bubbles popping even now, that's the grounds actually releasing the carbon dioxide. And when that carbon dioxide is coming out, less of the water is extracting the coffee that's in. So we want to make sure that as much of that carbon dioxide has time to release, because that's what's causing the bloom, that's what's causing the coffee to essentially push outwards. It's the gas releasing from the beans. We want that to happen as fast as possible. All right. Cool. Typically with the V60 or any kind of filtered brew, I would tend to pulse, or in other words, I would tend to pour in different increments, where you pour for one, you let the water drain down a little bit, then you pour again. So what that does is actually prevents the high and dry effect. The high and dry effect is where if you are continuously pouring and you're just pouring one spot, for instance, or you're pouring wherever, there would be grounds on the sides of the V60 or your Kalita or whatever it is that you're using to brew. With the increased frequency of pouring, you will essentially just sort of like waves on the beach. You would wash up and wash back, and you would be able to have your grounds be relatively lower in your V60. So like as you can see here, it's not as exactly flat because it's a little bit hard doing it with one hand and talking, and then my focus is everywhere. But here, let me turn on the light for you guys. It's not too bad either, And I've seen all kind of different methods where people stir at the end or they give it a tap. There's even a thing called a Rio spin. All kind of different things. These are, honestly, if you can figure out a way to consistently do it and make it taste good, have at it. It's all of this is to your preference, because at the end of the day, only one person is going to drink the coffee. Well, I mean, technically, more than one person could drink the coffee, but we all know who's drinking that coffee. We're making that coffee for ourselves. The reason why we strive to make great coffee is a little bit selfish. Well, that in my opinion. So, do what you feel. Your coffee, entire process of extraction should be about 2.5, 3 minutes, something along that. It shouldn't be anything 2 minutes or less, and it shouldn't be anything maybe 4 minutes and over. But that's specifically for this ratio. Maybe if you're using higher amounts of coffee and water, it might take a little bit longer, but it shouldn't be anything ridiculous. And as you start to brew more frequently, you'll understand what's appropriate, what's maybe out there, and of course, at the end of the day, the taste. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a cup, and we'll try it out and see. So similar to how I added the water to the carafe and the V60 in the beginning, I like to throw whatever leftover water I have in my kettle into my drinking cup. Just give it a little bit of a stir so that way the heat can transfer. And now we stir it as well in here, because we want a very distributed dissolved solids in there. So it's a little bit less than I believe this is a 12-ounce cup or something like that. It's a little bit less than that, so it's probably about 10 ounces or so, maybe about 9 or something like that. But frankly speaking, Rick and Morty would be proud. Nice. Cool. Well, thanks for watching. Of course, this is my first iteration of me just making coffee. I'll see if I can find different topics for me to talk about, or maybe voiceover or something like that. I have a lot of ideas, but frankly speaking, I'm lazy. I am a lazy person. I am that everything sounds great, but I am not going to be doing it. So I'm trying to change that about myself, but hey, what can I say? One coffee at a time. Thanks for watching.